This project is an honest and in-depth perspective of and from former students of Milton Hershey School. We call ourselves Milts.
An organic, open discussion of life before, during, and after attending MHS.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Milt Talk Podcast. We are here today at the Homestead on Milton Hershey School's campus with our great friend Pete Gurt, the president. Pete. Hello, Peter. It's been a long time coming, and thank you for having us. We're really appreciative that you guys welcomed us on the campus to talk to you, and yeah, I'm a little nervous. I feel
we're in the Homestead, dude.
I got a little serious real quick.
The air conditioner should definitely be.
Yeah, we need to turn that up a little bit.
It got a little warm though.
It got a little warm.
We're good now.
But yeah, thanks for having us. We really appreciate it, and we just wanted to, talk to you as a Milt. Today, you kind of put your president hat down a little bit. As long as legal allows us, of course. But can you tell the people what year you graduated?
Sure. I'm a proud member of the best class that ever has gone through Milton Hershey School, the class of 1985.
It's really not necessary.
85.
We don't really,
85.
I mean, it's a good class.
Really?
I don't know about the absolute best class. I mean, because you got to go up a couple more years at 87.
Oh, man.
If you really want to talk about the best class.
But so wait, when did you come to the Milt?
I enrolled in September 25th of 1972.
I love that you know that. Did you have to look that up, or have you always known it?
I've always known the day that my mother made the very difficult but very impactful decision to share me with Milton Hershey School.
Okay.
So I remember it like it's yesterday.
And we've had your brother on already.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Did he just go LeBron? James Owens, taking my talents to South Beach.
That's it.
Share my talents with you.
That's before they had the big PR thing and all that stuff.
Just got real official. She wanted to share me with.
Pull out the T-shirt and the hat.
Share me with Milton Hershey and later the world. So that's how we're going to do it.
No, but when you came, was it just you and your brother? Because I know we had your brother on, and the two of you came, but was it the same time?
Different. Bob and my oldest brother, Ray, enrolled a year earlier than I did. And so I'm the youngest of 8 kids, grew up in Philadelphia. My father died at a very young age. He was 39. I was 2 years of age. So I never really, I don't have any memory at all of him. And so my mom was friends with a woman that worked for a judge in Philadelphia and knew that she was struggling. I mean, she is a single mom now with 8 kids with no real income. And she said, have you ever heard of this place called Milton Hershey School? And so I would have been too young. My brother Ray and Bob came earlier, and then I came as soon as I possibly could to start kindergarten here.
Okay. And Ray didn't make it.
Ray did graduate.
Oh, he did
graduated
graduate.
in 76.
Okay.
But he ran away a couple times.
Oh, he was out. I remember there was something with Ray.
I remember the runaways.
I think the
times.
number was 13 times. Wow. Yes. And each and every time sometimes he didn't get very far. Sometimes he got pretty far.
He made it all the way back for a soft pretzel.
When Ray's his first day here, he enrolled late in 8th grade. And so rather than having come to a middle school home, they put him in a high school home. So he was at Rockridge. And he didn't understand Milton Hershey. And one of the first night at dinner, somebody busted on our mom.
Right. Ooh.
And Ray didn't know that was that's how you
like,
showed love.
Right.
So he stood up as an 8th grader, leaned over and popped the guy in the nose, and found himself on detention his first day here at the school.
Welcome to the Milt. Welcome to the Milt. And take this fork in your neck too. Don't ever talk about my mother. Ever. Well, it's funny. You come up to homecoming now, and it's just straight to the mom jokes. Like it's, you know what I mean. There's no in between.
Get out the car and it's your mom. Oh.
Exactly. Oh, I'm back. I'm back. And you were from the Northeast, right?
I was, yes.
Okay. So you've been here obviously in different capacity. You've been a student, and now you've been president for how long?
I'm starting my 8th year.
8th year. I don't know why it feels like it's been longer. I guess.
Now, is this it? Like, because Barack only got 2 terms.
The good news is I'm not elected by the
electoral college.
4 years.
None of that.
Next thing you know, everybody, your bags are out front.
Uh-huh.
That's cool.
No, I have a view. My view just with everything is, I want to make sure that I don't stay past my expiration date, and you always want to make sure that your contribution outweighs your baggage. So I don't know what my expiration date is going to be, but I'm going to be here until I feel like I can't give my best every day. Seriously. I mean, that's just how I feel about
Makes sense.
serving this incredible place.
How's it been so far? putting on that hat and looking at it from a different perspective, like, not just being a homeboy, but, running the ship and trying to make a difference and get the school up to the time, so to speak?
I describe it really as, hitting the occupational lottery. When you think about a place that has literally saved and changed my life and the incredible experiences, mostly fun, to then have the opportunity to come back and work here, I would have been happy with any role. And so this is my 31st year as an employee of the school, and I basically worked in or have led every department at the school. So I think it just gives me a good perspective of what we do exceptionally well, where we still need a lot of work to do. And so being the president really has been the honor of a lifetime. I can't imagine any other honor that would mean more to me than serving the home and school that helped raise me.
Well, I want to say, so like being a president's got to be really tough, balancing between that and your family. I was just asking about your kids. You and Jane were saying that they just graduated college. So it's like, how did you find that balance? How did you guys find that balance? Yeah,
it's I'm very close with a lot of employees of the school. And so there were many employees that were exceptional to us as students, but that sometimes had strained relationships with their own kids. And a lot of it's because they gave so much to us. And so I made a commitment to ensure that I would always have that balance. And I'd like to say that I was the kind of dad that never missed a sporting event, was always there. The fact that, our kids really feel like they're Milts as well, because we integrated them into the school. And not only did the school save my life, it's provided for my entire family, and it's allowed me to find the woman of my dreams, Jane, who was an employee of the school. So really everything about my life is somehow connected to Milton Hershey School. And we've just always committed to making sure that that our family is part of the Milton Hershey School family, and that way it was easier for us to balance.
That's a testament to the fact that you said that your kids see themselves as Milts is a testament to you and Jane's commitment to making sure that they felt integrated within your life as a employee at the school. Because there's some, like you said, whose kids didn't bode well with the school. It's hard to have that balance, but the fact that you said that they feel like they're Milts, that's a testament to you guys' job as parents.
Thanks, Warner. And they took some grief for it growing up too, and sporting events where they'd have the Milton Hershey School shirts on and the sit on the Milton Hershey side, and so they took their share of shots for it. But I think they just related more to, they knew how important the school was to Jane and I, and therefore it was just as important to them.
Right. That's good stuff.
That's awesome. All right, so I got to ask. We were talking about it, and this has been a really crazy year and a half with COVID. And so I just kind of want to talk about this. The school, I don't know that there's ever been a pandemic in our lifetime. This is going to be the reference point for all of us, when our grandkids or whatever. How hard was it to deal with that? You're dealing with it still now. And what has changed as far as protocols and so forth, keeping the kids safe while still, being connected to, we didn't have homecoming last year for the first time ever. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, how do you navigate that? What's the future of COVID and, for Milton Hershey School?
COVID was a good reminder for me that as the president of a school, of a nation, you don't always control what the priority is going to be. And none of us could have predicted that last March 16th, we would be required to, in essence, stop in-person instruction for our students. And so there's no question the last 18 months have been the most difficult, not just for me as the leader of the school, but for the entire staff. And so back in March, we made a decision that some people didn't always like, which is we were going to stay open. Right? If Mr. Hershey, during his lifetime, the school has never closed. Never closed for a war, never closed for their pandemics, never closed for any crisis going on. And so given who we serve, we made a commitment to keep our doors open, and we were not going to deviate from that plan. What we did allow in the first couple months of the pandemic was for children to go home who chose to go home and participate in our online instruction. And it was a disaster. Very few of our students plugged in. Those that did plugged in for a little bit, not all day. And that's just on the academic side. And when we had 60, 70% of our student body was home, they weren't receiving the medical care that the school provides, the dental care that the school provides, the psychological care. And so when we saw the results of that, we just said there's no way in the 1920 school year that we're going to allow for online learning and for our kids to stay home. If you're going to be a Milt, you got to be here on our campus.
It's part of
And so
adapting.
the last year has been really tough. But I do think we're the only school in the nation that started in person and finished in person
Okay.
and managed it as well as could be expected. I'd be lying to you if I said it was a great year. I mean, imagine, especially all of you were pretty active when you were students here. Imagine a school year with no athletic events, no visual performing arts events. You literally went to school, went back to the student home. You weren't allowed to hang out with your friends. You were kind of isolated with your student home. But we got through it. And our staff did an amazing job. Our students rose to the challenge. And I couldn't be more proud of them. And then, of course, then all of our planning was to start this school year, the 21-22 year school, as normal as possible. And now we have the variant
creeping up, yeah.
And now we have to make kind of daily decisions about what our next steps are.
Which makes sense because there's only so much planning you can do. So what about homecoming? I'm asking for all the for all the homeboys and homegirls out there.
Yes, homecoming is going to go on.
Okay.
And I think the way we've designed it is for the adults to have a lot of time together, minimizing interaction with Milton Hershey School students. And so on Saturday, Friday night, there'll be the Alumni Association events at the Lodge. Saturday, there will be a football game. We will not allow alumni in the stands, but there will be a tailgating party, for lack of a better term, out at the Dearden Purcell campus, so that way alumni can connect. And then a lot of the reunion years are still going to do their thing on Saturday night at the Lodge in separate. So we're trying to minimize large group interactions, but even those large group interactions, if they're without our students, my view is alumni are adults.
Yeah.
They can make the best decisions for themselves and their families, and we want as many of those grads to come back to the extent they're comfortable with. And so in lieu of a lot of on-campus activities, we are providing the opportunity for those that sign up to have Hershey Park tickets for their families at no expense to alums, so that they can go to the park and enjoy the day with their family, with their classmates. So they're still part of Hershey, but it's not going to be the typical homecoming.
No, but something's better than nothing.
And that's how I feel. A lot of people were kind of a little upset that it wasn't the typical homecoming, but I thought that the school's doing a great job to just present something, Again, we're in unprecedented times, so you got to kind of roll with the punches. So the fact that you guys did something at all, to me, personally, I think it's a good thing. So
thanks. And I do, one of the things that continues to, what do I not handle well as a president is that I just don't like to disappoint anybody. Like, I have had the privilege of being here for 31 years, but most alums, they love the school, but their one connection to the school is homecoming.
Right.
And so having the best homecoming, and we're really the only school that really matches that title. It really is homecoming for us.
Right.
And so with that, I know that a lot of people have different views on, is the school, we've got extremes. You've got alums that think we're not doing enough, others that think we're doing too much. But the fact that, last year really took a chunk out of the whole community, because there was just a lot going on at a time when you couldn't come together as a community. I think that the compromise is that alums are going to feel connected to the school, but most importantly, feel connected with each other. And for those that are comfortable coming back, I think it's just important to see people and not just rely on social media and other ways to stay connected.
absolutely.
It's not realistic that everybody's going to be happy all the time. It just isn't. When you got a bunch of people, some people are going to be disappointed. I'm just happy you're making decisions to keep people safe. That's what you can control. The other stuff you can't. So
I think safety's paramount, no matter what. No matter what field you're going to, safety has got to be paramount.
Yes.
that's it.
And who knows where this thing is going to go. So you have to do what you have to do in those particular situations. But let's get past that. Let's get past all that. Let's go back.
Yeah, let's go
What we're going
back.
to do now is go back.
How far back?
far back in the day.
So which student homes were you in?
Yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Yeah,
but I started this.
Chill and still.
That's good.
No, yeah. So which student homes were you in?
Yeah, so- go
I
ahead.
know one of your roommates was James White, I believe.
Yes.
And he told me that he actually had his own dog at the Milt. Is that true?
It is true.
Wow.
How you pull that off?
Yeah.
Well, I still don't think it was legal, but we'll get to that. No, so when I came to the school, when I came to the school, I started at Student Home Emerson, which were the elementary homes at the time, and my house parents were Mom and Pop Reale. Amazing people.
Rest in peace, Pop.
Yes.
Rest in peace, Pop. I'm sorry.
And I just think that, had I started anywhere else, I just often wonder would I love the school as much as I did. They were just amazing. So much so, my mom loved them to the point where it was frustrating because she'd come up to visit and would want to sit with them for an hour or two. And when you were out on visiting, minute one, minute one, you wanted to be off this campus. It didn't matter where you went because there weren't too many things to do anyway. But she would sit for hours and talk with them. And so they were amazing at making my mom feel comfortable with this decision. And then, so I was with them until moving to middle school. I first went to Nanacoke. I won't mention the house parents because I'd say those were the 2 years that were really the least pleasant of my experience. They had strict down. They just didn't have the care and compassion down. And so fortunately, there were teachers that I was very close with, Ethel Campbell and other teachers like that knew I just wasn't myself. And then got me moved to Student Home Stiegel with the Aikens, Bub and Cleta Aikens at Stiegel were amazing people. And then high school, I bounced around, not because I was bad. It just
You weren't that good. Everybody thinks he didn't get in trouble. See, he bounced around.
I rarely got in trouble, not because I didn't misbehave. It's because I knew how not to get caught. But I started at Willowwood, and then because my Bob student home didn't have an opening, and then as soon as an opening happened there, I moved out to Edgewood with the Schaefers, who were amazing people. And then I got smart and thought, how do you avoid barn work? It's you learn how to sing. So I made the Glee Club, and then moved to Student Home Muncie with the Eberts, and was with them until they retired. And then the decision was made to close down the Glee Club student homes. So my last student home was out of Glendale, which is now the Dearden House out on the alumni campus, and that's how I spent my last year.
Which is where I met you.
Yes.
Yeah, the story I always tell when you and Miss Martin woke me up as a freshman, like, it's barn. I'm like, I run downstairs, put on my crap covered clothes, run outside. Y'all just laughing at me. I'm like, who are these people? You know what I'm saying? House parents are there laughing. What was this? The Greers. The Greers were there. But that made me feel like I was in senior division now.
So when we were in Glendale, or actually it was started at Muncie, James White and I were roommates. An amazing guy. And James somehow, I still don't know how, got a dog into our room. And he claims that everyone knew about it and that the house parents were okay with it. But he actually trained the dog to do its business on my side of the room. So, that was my big fight with James. Like every morning, I'd have to dodge, doggy diamonds, to get to the bathroom. And the dog was scared to death of him, so he knew not to do it on his side of the room.
That's awesome.
Did that dog stay in your room the whole time?
Yes.
Wow.
You want to get him on this show to find out how he was able to pull that off.
Yeah, he said it, and I didn't believe it. I said, I'm going to ask Pete. And he said, well, go ahead and ask him.
Yes, it's 100% true.
What was the dog's name?
That I don't remember. And to this, not because of that dog, but I am deathly afraid of dogs.
Really?
Yes. And my house parents out at Edgewood, the Schaefers, they had a Doberman. And this Doberman just knew when you were scared.
Giving you the
and
look
it would
from
chase
across the
me
room.
to the barn every morning, and you'd run at 5:30 in the morning, and your big boots, and I had to run because it was just always at my tail. And so to this day, I even hear a little dog bark, and I start breaking out into a sweat. So
James still trains dogs to this day.
Big dogs.
yes,
Very
He
nice
helps me with my
kind of
dog.
animals.
He's like, yes, I know.
So Glee Club. How would you find your experience in the Glee Club? Because I never knew what it was. I was in Foxdale. You know, you guys only come over for a couple months during the summertime. And that was actually a really good time for me because it's like I got a little bit of relief because there was new guys coming in, and they were friends with all the guys. You know, we were all friends. So it was kind of interesting. And so it's just like your other friends are coming over now. So it was cool. What was your experience like in the Glee Club, and you know, what did you like? What didn't you like?
The two things that I think shaped my absolute love for the school beyond the staff were Glee Club and New Horizons. Being part of Glee Club, it wasn't, I mean, the singing was good, and my gosh, the fun we had.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
But you just had, like, Mr. A demanded excellence. It was the first time, like, I felt at the school, you know, that I could not coast because he'd call you out. And there were times, even in public concerts, that if you were not doing your part, he would stop the entire concert, yell at us, and then apologize to the audience.
And then turn around and say, how'd that grab you?
Yes.
You know, he'd say something. And meanwhile, we knew that he was very serious.
Yes.
And then he'd turn around and say something nice to the audience, and they'd smile, and you're like, I think I'm in trouble.
Yes.
And the next thing Mr. A would do, like you said, is call you out. So 4-part harmony. So you had a first tenor, second tenor, baritone, bass. And if you were a first tenor, he could tell if you were leaning. We call it leaning. So that means you really didn't know the music.
Right.
So he would have, there was Kills, and who was the guy before Kills? I remember his name. He played the piano. He was our accompanist. I see his face, dark-haired guy. Anyway, long story short, he would have him play your part. And have the entire Glee Club, you'd have to sing your part. We'd be in Founders Hall in the back in the little room we had, and he'd just play your part, or stop playing and just play the song, and you had to sing your part verbatim. And if you didn't have the part, you'd have to talk to Mr. A, and that's what you really didn't want to do, because he'd say something like, well, I guess I have to get you into a barn student home because I'm going to replace you. He would say things like that. And would just be like,
But you step your game up.
well, you'd have to. I mean, because the last thing you wanted to do was go to barn. Yeah. And he knew that. But he also would do stuff. Remember, he'd for the holidays, we'd go to his house.
Yes.
So, you know, it was a really good time. So.
And so what I loved most about Glee Club was, you know, the high school concerts when we'd go around the state and sing at high schools. I mean, we'd be greeted as if we were like the Jackson 5. I mean, the girls went nuts in the audience. And what I least liked about the Glee Club were those, I don't know if you remember the Sunday evening concerts. Yeah, I remember. Because they'd always be at these small churches, sometimes with 12 or 14 people in the audience, right? And you're not getting the claps and the screams. But it also, I think, is where we sounded the best. Because it really was, that was like, to me, an opportunity to practice.
It was practice.
And to hear some of those harmonies, you just don't hear it much anymore. You don't hear groups like that. And so, and then Tom Schwam with New Horizons, he was the most amazing musical genius I've just ever been around. And,
well, you know, if you go back to, at least when I go back, I think about, we'd be at lunch in intermediate division, and we'd be having lunch, and he'd come out and sing to you while you were having lunch. What a difference you've made in my life.
Real
the change you've made in my life. And we're just having, like, I'm like, we got a concert
while we're eating lunch
at lunchtime.
Yes.
You know? And I was like, this is pretty cool. And I was like, who's that guy? I had no idea. I thought he was like somebody. I was like, this school is crazy. We're in the Camelot room, which is, if you've never been in the Camelot room, and you're listening to this, I don't know what happened to you. But the Camelot room was like, that's the only thing that really, my selling part about me wanting to come here. My mom was like, remember that place you had lunch? You're going to stay there forever. I was like,
that could work.
All right. You're going to give me the same kind of lunch?
That could work.
And I think it was my junior prom where Tom Schwam, Bill Grove, if you remember that name,
Mr. G. Rove.
Ray Miller, who was before Bill Grove in terms of, and they were their own band, and they performed at our junior prom. Now that was really cool to watch them all perform together.
Yeah.
That was the best.
What would you say that your defining moment was at MHS? Like, what was, like, I feel like we all have that moment where you're like, okay, I'm here. I better embrace it? Like, was there like a teacher or a house parent or, you know, because you kind of, when you first come, you're like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it clicks and you're like, all right, this is it. Did you have that?
Not one. I would just say, you know, when I think about my first grade teacher, Louise Schwartzball, who I've never seen anything but positive, even as a retiree now, and she's had some of her own health challenges, and her just personality never changed. And
Awesome.
Connie Jennings, who was a teacher of mine, Carol Schilling, a teacher. So that's what kind of, in elementary school, I think made me start to really like the place. Middle school, Ethel Campbell was one that she took my brother and I out on visiting probably every other Saturday. And particularly in the student home that I didn't really enjoy, is when I thought, wow, I mean, these people, like, they really care about you. This just isn't employment for them.
Right.
And then high school, it was everyone from Bill Fisher to Jack Storm to Rick Francis to Mike Weller. Every teacher I had, Jim Cudworth. I mean, I just think of the people that I had that, you know, Jim Cudworth, I was a bit of a squirrel as a freshman, and he was another one that never wanted to embarrass you. So he called me after class one day and said he had this Spartan, ceramic Spartan, and I'm going to put a detention card on it. And so when you start acting up, I'm just going to turn it to you as a trigger for you to say, hey, you're getting out of control. So before putting me in trouble, didn't want to embarrass me in the class. I mean, those are techniques
Subtle.
that I try to use to this day, even with students. Or, you know, Bill Fisher would always, your name first, with then an affirmation. And so I try to do that with students today. So those were it was probably my 10th grade year that I said, like, this is in my DNA and I cannot wait. I don't care what the job is, what the role is, that I hope that I have the opportunity to come back and work. And so 10th grade is when it really clicked for me.
What was your first job when you came back?
When I graduated from Temple and had a job in Pensacola, New Jersey.
Go ahead.
Yes.
You knew that was
Temple Howe. Temple Howe. And Charlie Francis, who's Rick Francis' brother, was the director of human resources. And he called and said, how would you feel about, you know, coming back and working at the school? And I think it literally took me 45 minutes to go home, pack everything that I had, which was very little. And I was on the turnpike back here. And that was, so I started in August of 90 and I worked in human resources. And the main job that I had was really to coordinate all the professional development for the teachers and the house parents. And I did a lot of employee relations, you know, managing issues. But, you know, at the time, the school really felt that as you got further and further away from the Hershey's lifetime, how do you instill the same type of character and skills in new staff? And that was going to be done through professional development, particularly house parents. I mean, we all know that they have an extraordinarily difficult job, and a lot of their job is not always, sometimes is thankless. But we also know that a lot of kids view their experience at the school through the house parents they had. And so from day one, you know, I've just tried to make a commitment to ensuring that the people we hire and support and train in the house parenting means that every student is going to love this place as much as I do.
How's that been? I mean, we're talking about your experience, and you know, and we these old memories, and we all have reference points, barn, and all that stuff. But times change, and so now you're in charge of these kids. It's, you know, social media and computers. I mean, I remember we first got the first computer here on campus. Now every kid probably has a laptop or his own computer. So how's it been adapting to, you know, implementing these new training programs or just all of it? Like, how do you attack that?
Sure. Well, I think just my philosophy is, what do we focus on at the school that makes it so special? And then how do you carry that through, but in the 21st century, right? So how does the Milton Hershey School become as relevant or more relevant in the 21st century? And so I don't think of the school as much about as programs as I do as, you know, what is the philosophy? What is the value? And to me, the value of Milton Hershey School is that every student here should feel loved, respected, valued, and heard. And so that should have been true in 1909. It should be true in 2040. And so you've got to adapt your programs and your systems and structures that align with that. And so, like the barn was excellent for its time.
Right.
But there's just no way. The decision to close the barns, a lot of people, there's a lot of rumor out there as an example that it was more of an economic decision, et cetera. I mean, the reality is if we were going to help prepare kids for their future, not our past, that's what I often will share with my team. It's where are our kids going, not what our experience was. You couldn't have after school programs because at 4 o'clock, everyone had to be back to the barn. And so the only way you got out of barn is if you were in activities, but we couldn't do tutoring. We couldn't do those kinds of things. And so that's an example of how you change the work. What's the value behind the barn was a sense of work ethic. It was a sense of you have a daily chore and a daily responsibility that is important to instill in people, and that you couldn't do a job without a sense of teamwork. So all of those lessons can apply in a current way. So how do you still have daily responsibilities? How do you understand and model for kids that they can't do things independently of one another, because their actions always have an impact on those that they live with or in their performing group or those on the athletic field. And so those are the things we try to carry through. And so we've changed a lot. I mean, there's no question. I think that I think the school's better than it's ever been, and not because I'm the president. It's just we have the resources and a committed staff that are willing to do whatever it takes, even as we grow, that every student feels like they have an individualized program for their future.
The resources were always there.
Yes.
It's just the acknowledgement that things got to change and you got to always try and be better. And it's a constant balancing act. So, it's got to be tough, and it's nice to hear how you attack it and how you look at it. I got to bring up the elephant in the room.
Sure.
George Floyd protests, social unrest from police brutality. That flared up, everywhere in the world. But for what we're talking about right now, our Milt family, and I remember everybody's arguing and fighting online, and I know a lot of people came at the school, a lot of people came at you, and I didn't follow it to a T. It was just too much for me. But the thing that I noticed is you didn't run from it, and you spoke to people and you got back to them. What changes have you made? What changes are you putting in place moving forward? Like how does the Milt deal with that?
Sure. Yeah, it's again going back to, I think one of the strengths of Milton Hershey School has been that I think it has transcended gender, it's transcended race, it's transcended politics, it's transcended other world events. And so I think some of the criticism, quite honestly, was fair. I mean, prior to that point, the school never really made public statements about anything. And there's a lot wrong that happens in our society and in our world. And so I made the decision immediately after that I wanted to meet with my team first. And I do think that we deserve some grace because we were in the middle of the second month of the pandemic as well. And literally we were surviving in terms of providing the skills and the support for our students. And so I waited probably longer than some in terms of having the school make a statement. And so I understand that. It doesn't mean that as a human being, I don't know how any human being can watch what occurred there and not be not only heartbroken, but disgusted. But that, to me, I didn't understand initially why that was about the school. I later did. And I remember, I don't know if you remember me talking to you, because it was on the phone with you sometime early in that summer.
That's correct, July.
Because it was the first time I had seen kind of an undercurrent with alumni fighting in a way that I just had never seen before. Right. And my view is that we're all Milts first, and everything else we figure out together. And that was the first time I felt that I didn't see that, and still feel that I have a lot of work to do, because a fractured alumni group is hurtful not only to me personally, but it's not good for the institution. Yeah. And so I think we have to double down on how we make sure that we get back to a sense, an even better sense, that we're all brothers and sisters. And brothers and sisters may have arguments and fights, but there was just a deeper level of conflict And some of that I don't think is unique to Milton Hershey School. Some of it's just social media in general.
It's the world.
Yeah.
It's the world. It's the country. It's our school, but we have to be able to have these tough conversations.
I'm sorry. I also feel
please
like, as you said, it's the world. But I also feel like your brothers and sisters have left the world of Milton Hershey and actually gone out into the real world, so to speak. And they developed whatever personal opinions they're going to have and ideologies that, as much as you think that they should always be the same or think like you think because you've all had the same development here at Milton Hershey, they've been able to leave and transition into whoever they are. And I think ultimately some people were surprised at who their brothers and sisters have become.
Yes.
And very willing to express those opinions, whether it be social media, phone calls, however it happened. I think mostly, for whatever reason, I think people are so easily to say different things via the internet or Facebook or whatever the case may be. And just because you write something, you still have to stand behind that.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize what happens when you just start typing things. Your name is on that. So, I mean, with that being said, I'd like to just did you add anything?
I just wanted to jump in and say rest in peace to Scott Richardson. Scott just passed recently, and he was like a big brother. And I mean, I don't know anybody who loved the Milt more than him. And you know, I just would like to see somewhere down the road more people like Scott being involved. You know, Disha, the Philippas, and for every name that I'm saying, there's 10 that I don't know.
Right.
You know, but I think as alumni, or even if you didn't graduate, but you put in a significant amount of time at the Milt, you want to know or feel that the school's trying to always be better. It's not realistic to think people are going to be perfect, but always trying to be better. So I'm leaving that to you.
Yes.
And I got a lot of faith in you that you can do that. So, you know, I just want to have the rough conversations and figure out a way to move forward. So I just wanted to say that.
And I appreciate that. And no, I take it as a personal challenge and commitment. I mean, one of the great things with Milton Hershey School, I think, in our DNA, is a restlessness in terms of always wanting to continuously improve. Yeah. You know, when you think about, I say this to my team all the time, we're one of the few places where our performance will never match our potential, because it's rare that you can have the resources that we have with an incredible history and legacy and mission that we have and be satisfied. Yeah. Right. And we just can't be satisfied.
I mean, part of the reason we have you here to showcase and talk to you and so that people can get to know you is because the school has been getting bashed. You know, there's so much negative PR that's going on out there. The reason we did this project was just to kind of showcase. Excuse me, I should have ate that.
Should have had that.
Should have had that croissant. You know, I'm growling here, but no, a little stomach growl never hurt anybody. No, but the school's been getting hammered. You know, we live in Philadelphia, and so whichever newspaper, culprits. We don't need that. Yeah, it's just my point is people have nothing else to do but bash the school. And I just don't think it's fair, and there needs to be a balance. So part of what today is about, what this podcast is about, is just kind of showing the world, look at the other side. Look at who we are. Look at who we've become. And that's us now, let alone the kids that are in here now that are being molded. So, yeah. Let me get off the soapbox. I'm sorry.
I mean, the soapbox was good. But so let's talk about, and I always like to ask people these questions, so I really like to ask you, and not from the perspective of, I asked people, you know, when it was time, once you graduated, and you know it was over, like no more whatever was provided for you here, and it's like the next day, what did you do? And so I always tell a story, and I think everybody knows that I left with, I think, $35.
Here we go, yo. Yeah. Strap up.
$35 in your suitcase, and that was it.
What was me?
I mean, what was me? I didn't have any. I had one shoe. All right, So I did that too. Z400s. But no, my point is that, so today versus even when you left, the transitions that you've seen that the school has made so that maybe there's a little more to offer today than there was, even, 10 years after, and to what it is today. Maybe you could speak on some of that, like what are some of the things that, because I know there's transitional living and
In apartments, we're feeling some kind of way about the kids getting apartments and cars and all that. And
Just a bite. Just a bite.
Alumni program.
Just kind of, if you could kind of touch on that a little bit.
Sure. So yeah, all four of you probably wouldn't have graduated if we had transitional living back then.
I would have had a dog in there.
I would have
And the ability to
graduated.
drive your cars. It's just.
It wouldn't have worked.
So one of the things I think that the school has always struggled with is helping kids transition from a highly structured, highly regimented, highly disciplined program to literally the next day you graduate and it's over.
Facts.
Yep.
And so, very early on in my career, and I know even before I was employed by the school, it was, what do we need to do differently? And so how do you, the philosophy of like, how do you keep the safety net while kids are here, but lower it a little bit? So let them fail more while they're here to learn from that failure instead of compliance. How do you really teach again and instill this sense of values? And so transitional living was one step with that. So you're outside of a student home where you have house parents that are going to tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and then what's your consequence when you don't do it. So transitional living allows for seniors to live with 3 or 4 others in an apartment. They're responsible to basically take more ownership for their daily decisions with the supervision of staff. There are staff in the building.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
They have their own apartment.
They do.
You hear what I said?
They do. They have their own kitchen, and we used to have them cook their meals every day, but that was too many fire alarms were going off. So now they at least have to cook their own meals on weekends, but they are given the opportunity to go to the health center for dinner every night, and then they have an economy that they have to earn money. They have to learn how to pay their electric bill, and if they don't, their electric gets shut off for a little
Nice.
bit. So there's all kinds of, it's not real world, but it's helping kids get ready for real world.
And it's what you can do, because from what I understand, the letter of the trust limits what you can do as far as helping Milts. Like, it only goes up to when you graduate.
That's right.
So
With the exception of continuing education scholarship.
Right.
And so I don't know what form that was in when you were here. I know when I graduated, it was you could earn up to $4,000 a year, and you had to go to
Something
a
like
state
that.
school.
Right.
Now kids can earn up to $95,000 to apply to their post-secondary.
Yeah, let's get this straight, because there was some misinformation that was put out there.
said
So what is it now?
95,000.
Exactly.
$95,000. So, and the way
I
you
get
do
that
it,
now, or-
you earn it from your freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. And so, again, the system is built in a way that when do you make your worst mistakes? It's usually your freshman year.
Absolutely.
So your freshman year, you're only putting a small amount at risk. Your sophomore year is 15, and 30% is your junior year, and then half of your CES is earned in your senior year.
And the school doesn't have to do that.
That is correct.
Right.
That's purely optional. Everything else is mandated in the deed. It's the one thing in the deed that is optional. And there's no staff member that I've talked to at the school that has $95,000 already saved for their own kids.
Yeah.
And yet, that's why, again, without getting into, we usually get bashed, but we get bashed by the same reporter.
I
It's
know.
been, for a decade or more. There are schools that don't even come close to what Milton Hershey School provides, like we do. And, particularly in the scholarship. And our scholarship's not just for tuition, right? It's for living expenses. It's for health care. That was never covered in any of the stories. It was somehow that, yes, we do require some skin in the game, right? That's the whole point. That also flows from Mr. Hershey's DNA, that, he's not going to give things for free without the sacrifice. And there's
Right.
got to be a sacrifice.
Which is fair.
Yes.
And it's better than when we were kids. So,
Yes.
you know, when these articles come out, I always get. I'm sure everybody gets it. Did you read that article? And it's like, yeah, that's just not the whole thing. That's not it.
It's the fringes too. You know, that's not everybody feels that way, but they blow it up to make it seem like that's the consensus, the collective consensus, but it's not.
Which is why we're having this conversation
Absolutely.
now, so we could talk about this stuff.
Absolutely.
It's important.
Is there anything that you would bring back from like when we were in school, when our schedules were so rigid and so, you know, I don't know if it's still like that here. Is there something you would bring back to instill in that, or is that still part of the program?
Yeah, no, I mean, my brain is constantly churning about what we need to do. And I think in some ways, there was, while it wasn't required when we were students, there was an expectation that you were going to get involved in something. And even if you were not required to do it, you did it by choice to get out of the barn or to do other kinds of things. And so my entire view is a busy kid is one that's usually not in a whole lot of trouble. And so I do think continuing to try to instill a sense of expectation. You got to, not everyone's going to be an athlete, not everyone's going to be in visual performing arts, but you've got to nurture your passions here. And just like every other place, we have competing interests of technology, of doing the minimum to get by, you know. And in a student body, that just drives me crazy. And so we've got student culture work to do. And oftentimes we have kids that come from all of our kids come from really challenging environments, but then they come here. And if they can coast here, it doesn't prepare them for what they're going to go back to, and it doesn't prepare them to not have to go back to those. And so a sense of mediocrity, and I think I think we're all just wired in a way to make sure that, like, the whole point of you being here is to be better. To force yourself to be better. And so there's always kind of an undercurrent of entitlement. You know, I didn't like all the clothes that was issued. You know, I didn't like the shoes, but I also knew that they were a lot better than what I'd be getting at home, right? Especially being the youngest of 8 kids. Like, I wore whatever was passed down. And it didn't matter if it was female clothing. I had 5 sisters, right? I was wearing girl shirts, and I remember coming to the school, like, having chills because I was sleeping in my own bed for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, I still, like, it's palpable to me. And so to me, I don't understand kind of the complaining or sense of entitlement. Constructive dialogue, constructive improvements, all one thing, but that's different than, the food stinks or the clothing stinks. And I think in some ways, while we're trying to be more responsive to the needs of students, we probably overdo that a little bit. So that's something of the past. I can't imagine going into home life and saying, hey, I don't like these house shoes. You know, we should have 4 or 5 other choices. What the answer would have been.
Get out.
We all have things that we do.
Indeed.
So, what was your so let's go digress a little bit too. So when you're at the Milt, like, and you were here for quite a while, so I normally ask people like who are your friends, like who are your homies, you know. So, but being here from as young as you were, I'm sure you can come up with it. And I know some of them. So, like, who were your guys, like, that you were like, and then you probably still are in contact with to this very day?
Sure. Most were classmates or groups like New Horizons. The Tobin brothers and I were pretty close. James White is my roommate, Dean Gray. There's some of the guys that we just loved, and then the older guys. I mean, one of the most amazing things when I first joined the league, like singing with Alvin White, James' brother, and we would find places in the student home, like the stairwell or what was called the hobby room now, because the acoustics there were amazing. I mean, for hours
Alvin White
we would just sing.
The most phenomenal singer I've ever
Yes.
heard, personally.
Yes.
If it wasn't, I tell James, I speak to James frequently. Like, it's funny is because I told him 2 people that really influenced me to sing. And the first one's Alvin White. And the second one is Scott Richardson. But Alvin White, he had his own parent weekend show.
Yes.
He had his own. I mean, I think I was in 8th grade, and he had his own parent weekend show, and I was like, "This school is amazing. There's a guy here that they hire somebody. I mean, he had to never heard anybody with like to be so young, to have such a strong, matured voice.
Right.
To be able, I thought he was going, you know, Star Search. Remember that was the show?
Yes.
Yeah, back then.
I thought he was going directly to Star Search.
He easily
you know?
could have.
So, but and R.I.P. Allen.
R.I.P.
He passed away within the last couple of years. And, you know, James told me, you know, terrible news, but what a voice.
Yes.
We were blessed with that. And same with Scotty. Scotty was a different type of singer, different type of guy, but you know, interesting. So besides those guys being your friends and that kind of thing, anybody else? Because I'll just start random.
Yeah. I'm going to go into my rapid fire questions.
Yes.
They're easy. Barn or house?
Oh, house. Mike Weller passed away, and so I was honored to do his eulogy last week and shared, if we have time for a quick story. I know this is rapid fire. So out of Glendale, which was a 2-story student home, the Greers let us choose our chore for the last 6 months of our senior year. So I chose the basement chore because there was the wrestling mat down in the basement, and I knew the house mother couldn't come down because the guys were always doing showers. So I went down and I'd sleep every day on the wrestling mat. Yes,
Well played.
it was brilliant. It was brilliant until about mid-May. There was a freshman who was a kind of a nature lover, and there was some wounded hawk that was out by our student home, and he brought this thing in to nurture it back to health in the basement. But I didn't know that because I wasn't doing the basement chore. I wasn't cleaning the basement chore. So Mike Weller came in, did a student home inspection, and saw a mess that this hawk made in the basement. Well, here, I guess it had been in the basement since about March. And so you can imagine what a bird would do to the basement. And so his first question was, well, who had the basement chore? And it was me. So Weller loved the fact that the last 3 weeks of my senior year, I had to do barn duty both before and after. So I still say house chore was much better. There's nothing more gross than 5:30 in the morning getting whacked with a tail or shoveling brown snow and all those kinds of things.
Or getting woken up out of your sleep to put on doo-doo covered clothes to
Sorry
go barn.
about
Yeah, no, it's all
You
good.
can't,
It's all good. It's
you
all
can't
good.
be a Milt without like a great practical joke.
That was your initiation.
That was my initiation.
Yes.
And I was bad with practical jokes
Yeah.
because they were all done to me, and it was my chance to do it back to
That's
everybody
part of
else.
it. That was part
That was
of
part
it.
of group living.
Yes.
That was.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember pulling up to Glendale for your freshman, when you go check out the student homes. And we pulled up to Glendale, and they had Joe Hall taped to the sign out front, just hanging, mouth and everything. I was like, what the hell is going on here? I like this place. I think this is going to work for me.
And little Phil McIver, I don't know if you remember him. He
yeah,
was also in my group. My freshman year, he was in our student home, and we tied him up into a blanket and threw him into the house parents' apartment, like in the blanket. And so he like broke out like he was a bird trying to get out of the shell, and he's in the living room of the house parents. And he got in trouble, not us.
And I bet he didn't
just
say
never
one thing, did
understood
he?
that. No. And then all of my freshman year, there were 9 of us. You can't have 9 freshmen in a student home without there being trouble. And we weren't allowed in each other's bedrooms. And so the house father would come back, and for whatever reason, they'd hang out in my room. And so they would all hide. And if you remember the sliding,
Oh, yeah.
The closet.
and then there was
top.
the
The
thing
top.
above.
Yeah.
Yes.
The top storage.
So they all dumped in there, 9 of them, or I guess it'd be 8 because I was the 9th, like in the upper and the lower. And so the house father was looking for all the students, and I said, I don't know where they are, but I said, Mr. Schaefer, like my sliding door is having some trouble. Can you help me? Right? And so they're in there holding this thing as tight as
Trying
can
not to
be.
breathe.
Yes. And then sure enough, he got it open, and they all tumbled out, and they lost their Friday night town privilege, and I laughed in the van. That's just what you did. I mean, that's how you had fun back then. So. But anyway, sorry.
Right.
I'll be
That's
more
okay.
brief.
That's
No,
okay.
no, it's good. It's
That's
good.
okay. It
This
was
is
good.
Changing from rapid fire to just
Story.
slow and
fire.
deliver.
Right.
Slow and deliver. Go ahead. It's your rapid fire.
What was your favorite candy bar?
Oh, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup.
Better believe it.
Did you have a specific teacher or house parent that was your favorite?
Teacher would probably be Rick Francis
Okay.
in business ed. I mean, it's
He was the best.
just so
Yeah.
fun. And the fact that he's like one of my best friends now, I mean, that's another thing that people don't get to experience. Like my core group, my card group, it's all the same people that were working here when I was a student. So, Rick.
I just went blank.
Yeah, that's okay. It's all right.
So, can I tell a candy bar story since you asked?
Sure.
You know, in the slow and deliberate mode. So, when I was in fourth grade, not too many people know this, but the Hershey Company decided that they wanted to make a commercial to support the Hershey candy bar. And so they came over to the elementary school and had all of us line up in the hallway. And the executives just went down the hallway and picked about a dozen of us. And then we had to go to Hershey Company's headquarters and walk on their board table, smiling and eating a candy bar. And so I was, myself and Lionel Gilliam, I don't know if any of you remember that name because he would have been older. Liz Gilliam, yes. So he and I were selected from the school to be in the first Hershey bar commercial. So the one that says there's nothing like the face of a kid eating a Hershey bar. And so we went over to Hershey Park for the day. You take 2 or 3 bites out of the candy bar, and then they would take it out of your hand because they wanted the whole candy bar in the wrapper. And then they'd collect what you didn't eat. So I got to leave at the end of that day with probably 50, 60 candy bars in a bag. And then on Saturday mornings, again, you guys are probably too young because there weren't many TV options there. Every Saturday morning is when all the cartoons played.
Right.
Does that ring a bell?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Saturday morning during the cartoons, that's when the commercial would play. So then I'm in 5th grade. You know, every Saturday, or it was the Monday after the Saturday, getting called into the office at school to sign these checks because I was getting royalties for the commercial. So I actually graduated with from the school with about $60,000 in my account. From being
I see how you did it. I see how you did it.
I got $35. Did I mention that?
No, Deli, you've never mentioned
But
your
the difference
$35.
then is because I had money in my bank account, I did not take advantage of I could not take advantage of the continuing education.
The college thing? Really?
Yes. So I 100% funded my own college experience.
That's kind of.
Yeah.
Nope. I had $35.
Get off.
Oh, my bad.
Well, you're entitled to 100, but that means you had other debts
He had
that you were not
obligations.
taken care of.
Do I need to go into this?
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
So
He
I
really wants to tell
became
the
a very
story.
extraordinary cross-country runner. And at which time I got a pair of brand new Nike Flame shoes that somehow never made it back. And so therefore I got charged by, what was the gentleman's name who worked in the equipment room, the manager who was very heavy? who
Mr.
didn't
Jim
run
Butch?
at all. Yeah, that guy. He charged me for them, even though he took them back. So that's how I went up with $35. Thanks, Mr.
Can you tell we're a
We'll
little.
try and get you some school issued
Sick.
sneakers.
Z400s. I want the
Get him some Petermans. That's what he.
Get him the
I've been trying
kangaroos
to
with the
find
zipper
them.
on the
Some
side.
Petermans, some Stacey
I'm
Adams.
look forward to that. I want to take a trip to the clothing room. Do they still have that?
They do.
I want to go get a pair of purple
It's
slacks.
it's funny coming back as an alumni. Just like I went to Iroquois in middle school, intermediate division, and so there was that big park or just a big field where we would play softball marathon and all that stuff. And now there's a water park there.
Yes.
I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah,
Every
a
time
water
I come
park.
up to Hershey
Yes,
Park,
a water park.
The park is,
got a
so
water park?
there's a water park. Anytime I see a yellow slide,
Amazing outdoor pool.
yeah, I'm like, well, so we're gonna have an alumni day or
in
a
Tuscarora.
softball marathon
Yes.
for adults or something like that,
a
somewhere
great
down the
idea.
road.
I'd have been very close because I was in Tuscarora. I could have walked over there.
You just need a lot of Tiger
Could have
Bomb
hooked
and
out right onto
Bengay.
that water park.
Well, a lot of the thinking there is we just wanted kids to be here more in the summer, right? When we were here, you could lose vacation or earn extra vacation.
Exactly.
Stack
so-
and straw. That was fun.
For who? Yeah. But no, it just was, well, why are we, we shouldn't use time with family as a reward and punishment. So
Right.
we walked away from kind of losing vacation days and earning vacation days. But then we said, if we want kids to be here in the summer, we got to make it fun.
So what is it now? How's it work with the kids?
So we, kids, 2 weeks after the school year ends, they're required to stay here. Primarily the only week now is student home vacations.
Okay.
So all student homes are given resources to plan a week of trips.
That's awesome.
Some are overnight, some are day trips, depending on the house parents and the students. And we really ask for the students to kind of help shape what that would look like. And then we require all students to come back 2 weeks before school starts. And so in the middle, we have what we call our year-round experience program. So there are a bunch of 6 to 8 weeks where you sign up for camps or remedial programs, or we do a lot of science exploration, things like that, where kids choose to be back. And I'd say about 70% of our kids take advantage of at least one of those weeks to come back
good.
in the summer.
They're getting involved.
Yeah.
And what about through the course of the year, the year time vacations, the Thanksgivings, the Christmases, and the Easters?
Yeah, we tried to build a school schedule where at least once every month or two you have an extended weekend that could potentially allow you to go home more frequently.
Okay.
And so Thanksgiving is, I don't know what it was when you guys were, for me, like
Five
Wednesday?
days for Thanksgiving, 12 for Christmas, and 10 for Easter.
good memory. Yeah. So now it's probably 10 for Thanksgiving, 12 for Christmas, and 12 for Easter.
Got it.
And then you get 5 long weekends as well. So like the
That's
Labor
nice.
Days, the our October break, our President's Day weekend are usually 4-day weekends for you to.
Hey, Milts, if you're listening, you got it good.
Yes.
I know you think we're all old and everything, but trust me, you got it good. Just soak it up, enjoy it, and
Embrace it.
embrace it. Take advantage.
Very true.
While it's on my head, I wanted to also send a special, say Stephen Adams' name. Stephen Adams
R.I.P. to him, too.
passed away a week before Scott. And, his brother,
Damon.
Robert, or also AKA Damon, he's out there. So just wanted to send out a shout out to you all and tell you Steve will be missed. There's a few out there. Mr. Weller, we actually got to interview Mr. Weller. I couldn't make it on the 7th because it's just my schedule was coming this weekend. But I would have loved to be there as well. Mr. Weller was an influence on everybody here.
For
Pop Alley.
yeah, Pop.
I mean, the tough part with all that is not just the tragedy of the death, but really the inability to gather as a community for a lot of them.
Absolutely.
It just,
Absolutely.
and because of that, a lot of it just still feels surreal to me.
Yeah.
Like it didn't happen. There are, especially early on in the pandemic, so many retirees or alums that passed away, but they didn't get the send off. The family didn't
they
get the
deserve.
support.
Yeah.
And so that's what's, I think, made the last 18 months so challenging and difficult for me.
Well, rest in peace to all of them.
Yeah.
It's tough, these names that we're talking about that are in our era. I think about the folks that came before us and how tough it must be to lose, the people that you're coming up with. And even tougher for the young ones if they lose somebody. We talked about Mike Troisi when we were here, being in school, and how that, just dealing with that as a child is completely different than dealing with it as an adult.
Right.
So, rest in peace to all Milts that we've lost.
Yeah, Mike Bolt was another
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
young
Exactly.
man we lost. Nicest kid you ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still see his face.
And that's why we got to get through this pandemic and get back to the homecomings where we can appreciate each other and, spend that time and everything.
Here's a question for you, Pete.
Sure.
Do you still call Senior Hall, or do you call it Catherine Hall?
Depends who he's talking to.
Old senior hall. I call it old senior
Old
hall.
senior
Man, Scott
hall.
Copeland.
Right.
It's, I feel like it's violating tradition.
Right.
While I love the fact that it's our middle school building, and I love the fact that Catherine is honored by having that be the name, it's just always going to be Senior Hall
Always.
to me.
Me too.
Always.
Me too.
Yeah, I still get lost on campus now with all the new stuff and the roundabouts and everything.
Right.
I'm going down the wrong way, and it's interesting to see that the campus
I hope you like
change.
them, though.
It flows better. It makes everything that's going on make sense. That much I say every time I come on campus. I'm like,
But the word tradition,
Yeah.
you used it. It's great that, you have to move forward. You have to move forward. And some of the things definitely needed to happen. But when you look at it from a perspective of tradition, it's like, I remember I used to run around that loop for track. That loop isn't there anymore.
Right.
If you know it was there, you can still
Right.
kind of see it. So it's just a traditional thing, just like senior hall. Like it's always going to be senior hall with me.
Yep.
So, but just tradition.
Right.
I have one question about tradition. I know that Founders Hall
Yes.
was recently updated. What is
Timeline.
what's the
Yeah, 'cause
when can we see it?
Yeah.
Well, we
I know
were
what-
along 50 years is how long that building's been built and open, and so it was due.
Yeah.
And so it's been under construction for a while. The construction is, I'd say, substantially complete. There's about, a couple hundred, what in construction language is called punch list, meaning it's just things that still need done. So before the building's used, in order to make sure the contractor gets them right and doesn't say it's like that we did it, the building's still closed. And then we need a few months just to make sure the finishing touches are in it. So even though the construction's complete, you still want to walk in with pictures and the story and all of those kinds of things. So I would say no later than August of next school year, but it will be sooner, I think, that it's starting to be used for internal purposes. And the beauty of the renovation is the rotunda is still going to feel exactly the same.
Okay.
There's going to be some additional technology in there that I think is going to make it just that much better. The dining room will be much closer to what it was. I'll just leave that out there than what
That's
it
exciting.
what it is. But the auditorium, I have never seen anything like it, and I cannot wait until alums see it. Yes, it was pretty impressive before, but when I tell you, it's stunning.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
Excited.
Yeah, I really am too.
Yeah, I just got hyped a little bit. Like, we'll have to come back and get a private tour if that's all right.
Yes,
Yeah.
and a performance from Agoey.
And
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh yes.
Yes.
We
You
get
gonna
a,
earn that $35.
So Pete, where do you see the school in say 5 to 10 years? You know, what do you see for the future of the school? I mean, it's tough to look into the future because you're dealing with so many things right now. But in a perfect world,
Sure.
you know, what do you see?
Well, we did announce our new strategic plan, and our new strategic plan is called the Milt Plan
Okay, where can people see that?
on the school's website.
Okay.
And I would encourage you to do it, not only because of what we're doing and where we're going, but the Milt Plan was really designed to, again, try to reinforce a connection that I think has been lost over the last 18 months. And regardless of when you graduated, I think we're all Milts. And that was really trying to unify us. Our school theme this year is Greater Together, because I really believe the strength in Milton Hershey School is us as a family. And so going forward, I think talking about, the M is, molding character. The I is for innovating career education. We have more and more kids that have more opportunities now than ever before at the school, but also what they're doing. And everyone has a different path. And so how do we design a program that's fit for their purpose? Everyone to discover what they want their purpose to be. And if that's not a 4-year degree, great. We want to support you through that. If that's a plumber, we consider that just as much a success as those that go to University of Pennsylvania. And so we've always had kind of a strong career technical program, but we need to do more and need to support especially the entrepreneurial spirit of a lot of our grads that are choosing to create their own employment as opposed to relying on employers. So that's a lot of it. The L is like leveraging impact, meaning how can we serve more kids? We did announce the Catherine Hershey schools, and I want to just talk a little bit about that if we have a few minutes to do
We
it.
absolutely do.
And then T is how do we do it? It's together. The T stands for how do we engage alums to support their alma mater. We don't ask alums for a financial contribution, but we do want your time, and we want your mentorship, and we want your example more than anything. The more our grads, our young students see grads figuring it out after they leave here, the greater the chance they're going to have for success.
Because they can see themselves in those
Yes,
people.
absolutely. And there's a time that you become 25, 30, 35, and you're viewed as too old, like in the eyes of a 17 and 18-year-old. So how do our grads support our younger alums, and how do our young alums support our current students? And so that's the Milt plan. But part of the Milt plan is, in addition to, and where we're putting a lot of time and energy in, is how can we serve more kids? And we're blessed to have incredible resources. The school's results are better than they've ever been academically, et cetera. And so when you have the resources that we have, it's how can you serve more kids and more families? So that's why we chose to be in early childhood education. Catherine Hershey schools will be throughout the state of Pennsylvania, serving families from birth to 5, helping them get a very strong foundation through nurture, through play, helping parents understand the importance of physical touch and reading to your children and all of those kinds of things. So hopefully a lot of the kids coming out of Catherine Hershey schools would want to come to Milton Hershey School. We named a Milton Hershey grad who's much younger than all of us, Sennett Alexander, who is, he left here, also went to Temple, got a degree in early childhood education, and spent his entire world in the early childhood education field. And so to bring back a Milt to kind of lead this program,
That's the key.
is just, I really think it's one of my strongest obligations, is how do I make sure that the people 5, 10, 15 years younger than me, that we're integrating alums throughout all levels of the school so that the legacy can continue long after I'll retire.
That's exciting. It's a lot. It's a lot coming up. You guys have anything you wanted to add?
No.
All right. So
I think I'm good.
beyond that, is there anything that you wanted to say? We usually take a minute at the end just to give you the forum and say what you want to say. If there's a message you want to get out there, something you might want to say to the kids that are in school now, to the alumni, the floor is yours.
I would just say it's an honor to be with you, and to all 4 of you. I've been a big fan of this launch.
Thank you.
The time, the effort I got to experience today. This is it's not easy, and you're doing it out of a love and a passion for the school. And so my strongest appreciation to express, I am a little offended it took you 20-some to get to me, but
I think you were the first person we wanted. We
no, but I think you chose Bob first.
Well, yeah, we had to start.
Yeah.
And he did a great job. By
Yes,
the way.
that's good. Well, I'm glad you got him between prison terms too. Yeah, so, just kidding, Bob. Just kidding. But no, I just think that what you're doing out of a love for the school, so many alums love this place and don't always translate that love into action. You guys have translated it into action, and I think that the fact that you care as much about this place to tell the stories, and I'm not just talking about the glossy stories. I mean, if we're honest with one another, not everybody loves the school the way we love the school.
That's true.
And that's why I take it on as a challenge, right? That I want every graduate, everyone that ever has a contact with the Milton Hershey School to just love this place. And I do think we get an unfair rap. I think sometimes we deserve to be pushed in a variety of ways. But the fact that you guys are willing to get a story out, individual stories tell the collective, right?
That's it.
And the collective story of Milton Hershey School is one that the world ought to be talking about.
Absolutely.
Because you can't go anywhere else on earth, to see what Mrs. Hershey set up, that it's existing 111 years later,
Thriving.
that it has well over 11,000 graduates now, all of whom ensure that your children don't need a place like Milton Hershey School. We have literally lifted kids up in a way that no other place has done, and it's a great thing to be part of.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more.
I just wanted to thank you for the hospitality. Thank you, wife.
Yes, thank you very much
Thank you.
to both of the Gerts.
Thank you.
And I'm
Thank
not
you,
just
Jane.
kissing your butt because I want my $35. No, but thank you, seriously.
Sure.
And it's been a labor just trying to make this happen, and we've been working at it. So you might have been like 19 as opposed to 20 had we been able to go for it. But anyway.
Oh, and to do it, I mean, think about this. You mentioned the Homestead, but do people know that this is where Mr. Hershey was born? That the first 4 children lived on the 2nd floor, went to school here on the 1st floor.
Did not know that.
So it's I have to say, it's both an honor and a bit of a burden to be the current resident, because there's a lot of history in these walls.
Yeah.
And it's just, to host you is an easy thing to do because of your love for the school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys got
No, I'm tapped out, man. Like seriously, I think this was a good one.
well for the collective. Thank you, Jane, and hopefully we can keep this thing going and showcase some more Milts. And I got nothing more but gratitude. Appreciate it.
Anybody wants to send us any money, we'll just wanted to throw that out there.
Because Agoe only got $35.
You shouldn't cover that. This is Pete Gurt, and this is the Milt Talk Podcast.